Illari came out 2 weeks ago and she already received nerfs really quickly, which is why I never rushed these tier lists on day 1 of the season. As always, the list on the right is going to be a mix of top 500 ranked meta and pro play, where I base it off my personal experience, regional leaderboards, and the Overwatch League to really see what shines when played at the highest level. The list on the left is for everybody else. It's a very rough list with a higher emphasis on medal ranks, with the Diamond, Masters, and low GM players kind of being like a gradient mix between the two lists. Remember, these tier lists are always just my opinion. You are entitled to your own opinion, and please just use these lists to help inform your decision, but don't let the lists make your decision. Alright, D.Va's boosters used to be 3 seconds in Overwatch 1 for like a patch or two, which was instantly nerfed back to 4 seconds in Overwatch 2. In Season 6, they buffed it back to 3.5 seconds. Pretty close to 3 seconds, which means she's pretty mobile now, actually really extremely mobile now, and can control high ground very well. And you couple that with Illari entering ranked, D.Va is like a really strong option to, nullify her DPS and eat her Captive Sun ultimate. I mean, you don't even have to aim it anywhere closer and D.Va can slurp it up, bro. I'm gonna put D.Va in A+ tier for top 500 and probably A tier for everybody else. Alright, Doom mains rejoice because he has finally received buffs since basically like Season 3. He's way better in a lot of matchups now that he's able to block explosion damage from like Tracer Pulse Bomb, Cast Nade, Echo Stickies. They no longer make him explode. And then the higher Seismic Slam buff uptime means there's more overall overhealth from the passive. And we've kind of seen Doom mains return to the leaderboard, so I'm going to put him in A tier. He's pretty respectable now, and some teams are opting for Doom dive comps again instead of Winston, as he can reach Illari and blow her up pretty quickly. For everyone else, I would actually say still A tier. I had him lower, but a lot of people told me when I asked around that in Plat Diamond, they've seen way more Dooms, so yeah, let's put him here. Alright, for Junker Queen, she's still pretty solid. I mean, after a few nerfs late last season, she's kind of settled down a little bit because some of her tougher matchups are a lot more prevalent now. Overall, I'm going to put her in B+, like she's good. Good for both tiers. Alright, the big one, the horse, Orisa. I'm just going to say it, I think she's the best tank in the game right now. S tier for both. Now, she was a menace back in Season 2 of Overwatch 2, back in like December, when her Terra Surge got that buff where it could pierce through barriers, along with that damage fall-off buff on her primary fire. It was actually so strong that if you remember that her Fortify had to be reduced pretty soon after, and her primary fire fall-off had to be nerfed later on as well, and that's when she fell out of the meta pretty hard. Now, since then, I can count all the buffs they gave her again. They buffed the primary fire damage +1. Okay, a little bit of increase in playtime, sure. Not in the meta yet. And then last season, the fortified damage reduction went from 40% to 50%. Okay, she's getting a lot tankier now. And then bam, Season 6 Invasion, Fortify's health bonus was back from 75 to 125. The fall-off range got buffed back to 20 meters, which means the damage at medium range is a lot higher, and you can Javelin Spear someone mid-range and convert the kill yourself. You've got a recipe for disaster, and Orisa is everywhere right now for those reasons. Okay, Ramattra. I mean, he received the buff to his block similar to Doomfist in a lot of those matchups, with a slight nerf to building his ultimate. Overall, nothing's really changed. He's still really strong, but I think he maybe falls down to like A tier instead of A+ in top 500, since like the min-max ranked players will just pick Orisa comps to both poke and brawl, and then they'll kind of stop Ram from getting in. For everybody else, I still think Ram is pretty obnoxious, especially when he punches people down, he pops his ultimate, he's hard to take care of, so I'm going to put him in A+ here. Alright, speaking of Brawl, it feels like Ramattra is just the stronger Brawl choice for a lot of players, apart from those Rein mains who just simply have those like 2,000 hours of experience from Overwatch 1 that just allows them to pop off on brawling maps no matter what. So he's still pretty serviceable. I'd say he's like good in both tiers, but honestly, if they run like Orisa, Bastion, Zenyatta, it's going to be a miserable experience. He's very matchup dependent, right? And some enemy comps will just render Rein useless, and you'd arguably put him down to C tier below average in those circumstances, but assuming you know the right spots to pick him, he's still pretty respectable and good. Okay, the Roadhog tier. Pain. Why would you do this to yourself? We're all still waiting for the reworks they announced like 7 months ago or 8 months ago when his one-shot got nerfed. So yeah, I'm gonna just leave him here for now. Nothing to say. Okay, Sigma's always been the GOAT of poke comps, and he really excels in front to back maps with no flank angles like Circuit Royale, which is why he's always picked there. However, with Illari out as now another like pokey style support where she pressures with that DPS, I saw a lot of contenders teams start picking Sigma on maps that he was never traditionally picked on in pro play, like Gibraltar and Numbani. So instead of the BAP Zen poke, it's now BAP Illari with Sigma. It's really interesting stuff. So I'm actually thinking of putting him into A+ right now in top 500, and for everyone else, probably maybe A tier. Like, no one's playing perfect poke comps for your average rank play, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm putting them here. Okay, Winton. Now, Winton kind of dominated Overwatch League, and he was super, super strong and powerful in ranked play last season, but I actually think those Bastion buffs they gave him, which we'll talk about later, and the Tor buffs and everything, and the way the meta has shifted with Orisa kind of makes Winston a lot harder to play this season. And you couple it with D.Va as well, right? Getting faster mobility with the boosters. I'm gonna say he's probably still like, he's no longer S tier, but he's still pretty strong when you play the right comp and everybody executes perfectly. A tier, but he's no longer like the top choice in top 500. However, in the everybody else tier list, I get a lot of criticism for this, but I always stand by what I say here, that I think Winston is like fine for everyone else. Arguably below average. I mean, you're not supposed to like just look at the data and rely on that completely, but data has shown, especially in like bronze, silver, and like gold, Winston performs terribly because he requires A, resources, B, coordination, and C, decisiveness. And you'll find low metal ranks wasting bubble, leaping in at terrible moments where they don't have the right composition built around him. And then once you get to plat, diamond, or higher, he starts to become more popular. But for the sake of just glancing at it, I'm gonna put him at below average for most players. You can generate a lot of value when you get better, but like, why play Winton when you could just play like Orisa and Silver and go Burr, you know? Okay, with Wrecking Ball, I think Yeatl's video about the follow ball explained it pretty well. Explained his issues pretty well, excuse me. There's just a lot of mobility creep in this game right now, a lot of healing creep, and so many tools to stop or deny balls engagements now. So it's looking pretty rough, from things like Life Grip, the Tree of Life giving so much overhealth, Sleep Dart, Brig Bash getting the stun back a few seasons ago, Sombra Hack, the list goes on. If you're a dedicated ball main, you can probably still make them work, right? If the enemy team doesn't have too much CC, but you'll find it maybe easier just swap to Orisa, right? Definitely not as bad as Roadhog, but he's probably below average for everybody. So let's put him here. And then the last tank, we have Zarya. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised at how well Zarya's been performing. I think there's some very lethal Zarya bubble Bastion comps right now that I've been seeing, which just dominates because you enable the Bastion, you bubble him, and then he just pops off. Right? Zarya is also a high DPS tank, one of the highest output when you're high charge, that can actually challenge Orisa and actually help kill her, because Orisa feels pretty unkillable right now. But Zarya can beam her down if you're at 100 energy. So it just depends if you can get there. So Zarya is also a bit map dependent as well, since her range is limited, but honestly overall, I'm surprised with how well she's doing this season. I'm going to put her at A for both tiers. Okay, Ashe, still a solid hit scan DPS and can output some serious damage with consistent shots and dynamites. A for both lists. Okay, now on to Bastion. Bastion, if you look at the patch notes for the season, he receives so many buffs, like so many. His A36 grenade is actually super lethal now. It does like 130 instead of 115. That's big. That's really big. With the big damage boost, oof. Cooked. And the big one, an even bigger one, excuse me, is that he heals 50 armor on his HP when he transforms, effectively making him a pseudo tank in the DPS category, because he's got what, like 300 base HP with built-in armor, and then you plus 50 heal when he transforms. If you get even a little bit of resources, he's like so much extra HP to burn through. And how would he really burn a Bastion when he's in the transform state? Because he's burring right back, right? As you can't really peek him during those moments. So he's super obnoxious, especially in the metal ranks. I think in the high tiers, high elo players kind of know how to play around him, but like that's not stopping Bastion from being picked a lot right now. And I've never actually placed Bastion above B tier before, but I think if there's any day to do it, it's today. I'm gonna put him in A tier. He's actually pretty strong right now in top 500. And for everybody else, even stronger. I said it before, he's obnoxious as hell. I think Bastion actually owns right now, especially in metal ranks. He's allowed to do whatever he wants because the target focus isn't there. He's just gonna rip through people. Okay, Cassidy. So what's funny about Cass is that in the season 6 dev notes, they said he was underperforming last season, so they're just trying to buff him this season, and they're doing this by reverting his health back to 225, which is a buff from 200, right? But then they nerfed his damage fall off range to compensate, and that is actually a net nerf. It's really bad. This is kind of how Cass was earlier in season 1 to 3, but back then he had a really lethal mag grenade, a really cheap grenade that did 131 damage. That nade hinders now, but it does way less damage, so it's not as cheap. You have to use it a bit more like strategically. So overall, these are net nerfs, despite what everything says. He shoots like a wet noodle to anyone at medium to long range, and they really want to like make him a close range fighter, as it says in the dev comments. And I think this video from Wanted that he made a long time ago, where he shows the difference between damage fall off, like, he's showing this from King's Row, Archway, fighting to enemies at the end of the corner. And you can see how many extra shots it takes to like burn through people because of that damage fall off, right? This isn't even like a niche situation. This is like normal fighting range for King's Row and a lot of maps, right? This distance is pretty normal. So he's like, you have to play him at close range to be effective, which means he has to like fight off Doomfist and hinder him. That's good, right? Doom is around, but you know, everyone's playing kind of like the long range Sigma. D.Va's gonna eat a lot of your shots. Orissa's from far range. Orissa also doesn't take any damage. I don't know. I think Cass is like super nerfed. And if they have flyers like Echo Pharah, you do no damage. That distance between you and the sky, too far away. He used to be like a pretty strong, like I used to rate him pretty high, but like, I don't even think he's like that good. I think the other hit scans are better than him in a lot of situations right now. He's super niche. I'm gonna put him in like B tier now, and with the cheap grenade not being as cheap as it used to be in the metal ranks, you could probably get away with him not being above B tier. He's probably like B plus here. He's still like solid. 225 HP is a lot, and in these ranks, a target focus, right? He won't die, so I mean, and he can fan the hammer, I guess. So all right, B plus there, probably like B now in top 500. Echo, still pretty strong, I would say. In top 500, they can get a lot of stuff done with Echo if they leave her unchecked. However, Baptiste, Illari will be the common DPS support lineup duo. You'll see, I'll get to the supports later in the list, because that's double hit scan, right? In the support category by itself. And if like the DPS is like Bastion and Soldier or something, which is like totally playable right now, like you're playing against quad hit scan. Good luck flying in the sky. Like, good Echoes will know how to play around it, so I still think she's pretty strong here. But I think Echo is like below average, maybe. Nah, that's kind of a disservice to Echo. And she's probably fine, right? They won't have 4 hit scans in metal ranks. But like, all in all, she's not ranked as high in top 500 because she has high mechanical proficiency requirement, because you need to play the airspace correctly, and you have that knowledge check that you need. You need to know every hero, right? Because you can dupe anybody in the game. Okay, Genji, still kind of solid, believe it or not, because last season they buffed his ammo back to 30, right? So you can get a little dirty as well, right? With all the Bastions running around, you can get in close, deflect the Bastion, and then you can actually target focus the Illari in the backline. Illari is actually pretty vulnerable. She only has one movement, which is the outburst. If that's down, you can kind of jump her, especially if her pylon isn't set up properly, for her at least, because sometimes she'll aggressively set up the pylon for the rest of her team. So Ana, we'll get to her as well. Ana's still pretty good right now. She can nano blade with Genji, and that can be a great win condition in a lot of ranked matches, because not everyone's going to play the Orisa Bastion and everything. So I'm actually going to put him in A tier in top 500, and maybe B plus for everybody else. He's pretty good. Okay, Hanzo, a small nerf to his gameplay flow, right? This season, where he loses his charged arrow when he wall climbs. It's not the end of the world, but he's still a solid DPS to help shred through all the healing creep this season, since you can't out-heal someone who's already dead from a one-shot with the arrow, right? And his dragon is still a great engagement and counter-engagement tool. Can really help single out those beefy Bastion and Torbs around. I think he's still pretty strong. He's a great DPS choice in top 500, A+, and maybe A here. All right, Junkrat's actually pretty decent right now as well. I've seen him way more in rank these past few weeks than I have in like the past like 3 seasons. And he's actually pretty decent to help pressure down the Orisa, and with Flashpoint being like the new map in Ranked, Flashpoint has really tight rooms, especially like First Point New Junk City, or like that corridor on Suravasa, right? And tight rooms and small spaces make Junkrat really good. So I'll give him, like, honestly, I think he's good right now. B+, remember they buffed his nade, or his mine, excuse me, back to 110 damage after that nerf last season. So he's pretty close to how annoying he was a few seasons ago. So B+, and probably even higher than good. He's strong. Every metal rank complains about Junkrat because they just die to random spam. That doesn't become as big of a problem as you get better when people know how to play around it, but I'm representing the voice of the people. People think Junkrat's strong. Sure, I'll agree with you. Okay, Mei is a menace in Brawl composition, since you can wall off a target and whittle them down. Mei was played a lot in the Overwatch World Cup last season, or last month, excuse me, before the Orisa buffs, of course. But now with Orisa being super popular, Orisa, even if she gets walled off, probably won't die. And now if the enemy plays Bastion, Bastion can rip through your wall. Lifeweaver is decent now as well. Healing pylons in the game. There's so much healing creep. That even if you kind of like tag them down with Mei slow, because remember Mei got changed where you have to slow the opponent with enough free slow ticks, and then you mark them, and then you have to pop that damage with your icicle to do amplified damage now. And honestly, it's kind of slow, right? The enemy team can kind of out heal that damage you're doing, but your fire rate's kind of slow, so if they out heal it, you can't really convert kills on your own. She's kind of a very team reliant DPS, which means like she'll still find a lot of success in high ranks and in Brawl. I still think she's like good in top 500, but a bit more situational. She's not as like, you know, hold the spray down like she used to be. I think she's fine. I wouldn't say she's like super good, but she's fine right now. Pharah got an indirect nerf this season since Mercy's damage boost was nerfed, right? From 30% to 25%, and then you couple that with that double hit scan support duo with Bapalari, and I think you're gonna find it a lot harder to play Pharah this season. However, top 500 Pharah players, they're really good, and they know how to use aerial cover correctly and buildings and poke really well, and then they only like concussive and engage in an opportune moment. So she's probably still like a B+ hero in top 500. And then for metal ranks, probably about the same. There's actually more Mercies being played in the lower ranks anyways, so like you're probably gonna always have a pocket. So yeah, Reaper, honestly still pretty good. He's just not popular. If he gets any resources like a Zarya bubble, nano, or anything, he can put in a lot of work. He's a great brawly hero. He can fight off the tanks as needed, or TP to backlines and draw attention. He's actually an A tier hero for both lists in my opinion. I think he's strong. Sojourn had that buff in Season 5 where her SMG bullets have a much tighter spread, and that tighter spread makes her so much more reliable to play right now, because that allows you to build faster rail charge since more of your bullets can land when you're spraying at medium range. And now she's actually really common again in top 500 ladder, even without the Mercy pocket, because remember Mercy used to pocket her all the time in Season 1 and 2 because she would just one-shot everything with a damage boost. But damage boost is nerfed. She doesn't one-shot with the 1.5x multiplier because they nerfed that a while ago with Sojourn. All in all, she is really good though. Really heavy DPS. So A+. A+ in top 500. For everyone else, bit of a hot take. I wouldn't say she's below average. I think she's actually fine now with the SMG change. But yeah, she's certainly nowhere near S+. Don't even put her anywhere near there because, you know, your average player is not consistent enough with the rail shot for me to rate her any higher. So I'm going to put her in the fine tier. Soldier got those giga buffs in mid-season 5, and then they tuned him back a little bit this season. But he still has like a net damage bullet buff right now, which does affect his breakpoint. I think his healing is still a little bit higher with Biotic Field. He's actually played quite a bit in pro play due to his versatility and his reliable damage, so I think he's actually one of the better hit scan options right now, especially after the cast nerf. So A+ there. Same thing in the metal ranks, and well, everybody else, not just metal ranks. I'll put yeah. Okay. Sombra. She was the top choice for the last like little while, and in pro play, if you watch Overwatch League, all you saw was Sombra, right? But this season, her EMP charge rate was nerfed by 15%, and she can no longer destroy Tree of Life right now in the Lifeweaver matchup with EMP. Now, these changes mostly affect her at the highest level, of course, where that first fight support ultimate or first fight ultimate tempo matters a lot. So that 15% EMP matters there. But honestly, in the ranked ladder, I don't really think it matters as much as people think here. She can still dominate if you play her in the right situation, if you still run Winston Dive, or if you run Doomfist Sombra Dive. Still pretty good. But since Winston has taken a back seat, you have to remember there's a lot of Orissas running around. And honestly, Sombra, you can sit there and just like counter the Terra Surge, because if you hack the Terra Surge now from Orisa, it does stop it, so don't forget that. I still think she's solid. She's like a B+ here. But for everybody else, I'm going to put her below average, right? I just don't think in these ranks there's enough people who can follow up on your hacks, and then the Lifeweaver actually being pretty common right now in metal ranks. I barely see him in my NA ranked games. I played about 100 ranked games in the past 2 weeks. I've seen Lifeweaver like 3 or 4 times. Like he performed pretty well, but he's just not that common in top 500. But I've heard from everybody saying that like Lifeweaver is so common in their games right now. And if Sombra, like if Sombra tries to jump someone, like they can get Pedal Platform or Life Gripper now. If you try to jump the Lifeweaver himself, back when he had the big like hitbox and 200 HP, sure, you could actually just like one clip him because his hitbox was so big. But 225 HP Lifeweaver with a dash that instantly heals 50, you can survive the initial thing and then just like life platform yourself up. Like that matchup makes it really hard, and in general, Sombra has too much downtime. EMP slower to build. People teleport out and just stand around and do nothing a lot in a lot of these ranks. I'm just gonna put her below average for everybody. Symmetra. I was debating on putting Symmetra in A tier for top 500, but I'm actually gonna I'll settle, or A+, excuse me. But I'm gonna settle her into like she's strong in the right situations. You know what? I actually think Symmetra is really strong, especially because it's beam and like it's super annoying. Like charging up your beam to level 3 can like clean up team fights pretty well. But she's like a control, flashpoint, and maybe defense on hybrid maps kind of specialist still. She can't like fit on every single map by any means. So, but overall, I would say she's still pretty strong here. She's a noob stomper with her turrets. You can 2-tap someone with a secondary fire with poke. And then engage with your TP, which can throw people off. Yeah, I think Sim is strong. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna put it there. Pretty happy with that. Torbjorn. Torbjorn did receive quite a few changes this season. He's a great hero to play, first of all, when your aim is feeling off, right? The turret is a 6th player. They nerfed the turret a little bit last season, but so it's not as oppressive. But when I mentioned those buffs this season, yeah, they buffed his fire rate and all that stuff to kind of compensate for the weaker turret. And now, like, you can cook when you're poking with those Cheetos, because he's a projectile, so he has no damage fall off, so you can spam tight chokes and just do a lot, and it's a fast fire rate. And if you pop overload, you're just does a lot. You got your shotgun ready for close range fights as needed, and then you can pop your ultimate, the Molten Core, which absolutely melts really tanky Orissas. So yeah, I think Torb is actually like an A+, very strong DPS this season. They actually played him a lot in all the contenders matches I was tuning into. With teams trying them out. So yeah, there you go. For everybody else, probably the same thing. Still A+. Tracer. Still really, really good. High skill cap, mobile, flexible, creates a lot of space, pressuring off angles. These things are just not possible with all the other heroes. And I think with the high skill cap hero, she's always going to be like a very strong option in dive and even in all these other mixed compositions, because she just has such a unique presence that nobody else can offer, right? And she's low resource. She can blink to health packs. However, she now has to burn through like a healing pylon and everything, but if the pylon's not there, I feel like she can actually like clip the Illari if the Baptiste isn't paying attention. So that's something to think about. And 2 of her annoying matchups like Kiriko, Kunai, headshot plus melee, and the Ana 2-tapping with 2 primary fires was nerfed this season. So she's stronger against Ana and Kiriko in those circumstances as well. So yeah, A+. Tracer's still very strong. Don't need to say anything else. I say the same thing every tier list. She hasn't really changed at all. For everybody else though, below average. This is mostly like bronze, silver, low gold. Platinum, maybe fine. Diamond, pretty good. Master, strong, and then Grandmaster, very strong. That's basically how I would rate it. So actually, it would be kind of a disservice because 3 ranks are below average. Maybe we'll put her in B tier. She's like fine, but the high skill floor makes her like a requirement to be good with her to generate like meaningful value. And with all this healing creep, you're gonna find like low rank tracers can't clip anybody. They're gonna feel pretty helpless. They're not pressuring the right ankles. They're just gonna shoot endless like Lifeweaver Moira pocketing, and that's just not gonna be fun. And then you're gonna find tracers focusing the horse for some reason at these elos. That's why I was about to put her in below average, but someone's gonna be like, ah, metal ranks don't represent everybody. I'm diamond and she's not below average, so fine. She's fine, but just take what I say into consideration. Thank you. Widow. Widow's range was nerfed a lot in season 5, but I actually initially put her pretty low in the tier list last season, but I still see Widows dominate in high elo because she's more nichey and situational now. But honestly, in top 500, when you're a cracked Widow, you can still dominate games. If you're cracked, you're cracked, you know? So B+ here. For everyone else, like, she's also fine. Like, I would even say like a lot of low metal ranks, they're below average. If you're a metal rank like silver Widow main and you're stuck in silver, you might not be a good Widow, because she's like the hero that you have to hit your shots, and you're probably not hitting enough shots. You're just the 6 shots, no kills, body shot bandit. But like, again, you know, probably around diamond, you can see some pretty cracked, even like high plat. Some people are really good aimers. They're just too predictable, I suppose, past a certain point. But Bastion being a meta hero means like there's one less DPS that you can one-shot. And honestly, Tor's pretty hard to one-shot if he pops overload too. Yeah, it's probably fine. Okay, let's go to the supports now. Ana, she had a slight damage and healing nerf this season, but her unscoped projectile actually got a 10% bullet size buff. So size doesn't mean everything, but I found myself this season kind of shooting unscoped a lot more reliably, and that's a good thing for the consistency, right? And not every player has like Baptiste in their hero pool, because Bap is like, you know, is really different. But a lot of people seem to be okay with playing Ana. And, you know, if a lot of people are actually locking in Illari because, you know, it's a new season 6, a lot of people are just going to play her. And if people play Illari, you don't have to play the meta Bap with it. You can actually play Illari Ana on some comps too. I think Illari Ana is pretty good as well. Ana's anti-nade, sleep darts are still top-notch in support playmaking. So, like, you know, I still think Ana's very strong. And, yeah, for both tier lists. Baptiste. Now, Baptiste was the massive winner this patch with the Orisa and Bastion buffs, right? Bap's inherent healing output, when you couple it with his consistent DPS and then the lamp and the regen burst, like, it just synergizes so well with the meta stuff right now. So, Bap is also good with Sigma, right? And Sigma is the alternative choice on maps that Orisa can't brawl on with a lot of high ground, like the Nambani, the Midtown, the Watchpoint Gibraltar. Like, he's just the hybrid poke brawl right now champion. Like, he can do both, and that's why I have him in S tier in top 500, and maybe down a few tiers. Like, he's still very strong here, but I don't know. I'm a Baptiste main, right? And I've watched a lot of Bap gameplay from viewers submitted stuff, and I feel like a lot of players still lack that mechanical shoot heal, or shoot heal. It's nowhere near optimized in the lower ranks. And like, if it's not optimized, you're actually better off playing other supports that probably do one or the other better. If they're like hardcore DPS Zenyatta's or Illari's, you can focus on that and do more damage than Bap. And if you just want a heal bot, you just play Lifeweaver. But like, he's still strong for players. But if you're mechanically like adept, very strong, or S tier again. But averaged out, I have not been impressed with 95% of the BAP VODs I've been sent. And that's probably a personal bias. Maybe people are sending it in because they suck and they want to get better, and that's why they don't show me that they can do it. But I have yet to see a BAP pull it off like very well. Brig, it was essential last season in the Winston comps, paired with Ana to protect her, right? She's so good with anti-dive now ever since they gave her a stun on the shield bash when she pops her ultimate. But this season, there's a lot less Winston dives. Like, sure, there's Doom dive and all, and then she's fine again in those situations, but she did receive 2 nerfs this season, right? Because she was pretty strong. They nerfed the shield health from 300 to 250, and the time to build rally. It takes a little longer now. All in all, she's a lot more situational of a pick, right? And the meta has moved away from those specific situations she's good at. So she's fallen down from like maybe like A+ last season down to like A, still really strong. And maybe B+ at other ranks. Like, she's good. Probably because dive's even rarer here since everybody plays the easy brawl stuff. They play a lot more Rhine down here actually. So that makes, I mean, Brig's okay here. So yeah, she's good. Illari, the brand new hero this season. She was so good on release that they had to nerf her 2 weeks in. Healing Pylon was the strongest part of her kit because it's just easy AFK healing, and then you could just focus on her damage. And then I found myself topping damage charts, getting like 13, 15k damage in games, and I still had top healing because my Pylon did so much. And the beam isn't something you spam, it's situational. When you need to really hard pocket someone for a second or two, the Pylon's doing its job, and then you just DPS again. Right now, she is insane, and even despite the nerfs, Contenders players are playing Illari in a lot of compositions with Orisa and Sigma right now, and some with D.Va as well. I think she's an S tier hero right now. I think she's really good. There's also like the knowledge check. A lot of people don't know how to play around Pylon and play against her yet. And if you're just like a mechanically adept player in top 500, you're just gonna dominate because damage tends to dominate in ranked play, especially. For everybody else, her fire rate, you have to kind of wait until she charges up her bolt rifle again, and I feel like players may not consistently hit the back-to-back shots as well to get full value on that. Pylon will still be good, of course, but like maybe they don't put it in an optimal position and it gets destroyed a little bit too easily. So then they're stuck heal beaming, but if you heal beam too long, like the mechanical thing is pretty big. If you heal beam for too long, then you're penalized or penalized for like 3 seconds not being able to use it. I still think she's strong for everybody else, excuse me, but like nowhere near, like this is like a high skill hero. If you hit your shots, you're dominant, kind of like Sojourn. But if you can't hit your stuff, you get knocked down a few pegs, and that's where I think Illari kind of fits right now. Kiriko. Kiriko had a big shift in her playstyle this season, right? The Protection Suzu actually heals more now if you cleanse negative effects specifically. Her kunais also got a lot more power in the body shot now. It does a little bit more to the body and a little bit less to the head. And let's be real, most people have less than a 15% headshot accuracy. So this is a buff to the body shot bandits, which is probably most of you guys. Her healing Ofudas have a faster recovery time this season. That was another buff there. And all in all, this kind of places Kiriko back in A+, I think. I think she's really strong right now. And she's probably still pretty solid for everybody else. Lifeweaver used to be a D tier, but now I actually think he's good in top 500. And for everybody else, he's even better. I think he's strong. He's arguably very strong. Lifeweaver is being played all the time. I'm gonna just put the hot take here and say, especially in plat and under, the hardcore heal botting from this guy is absolutely nuts, and you can simply win games with attrition. If Bastion and Orisa are unkillable here and you're just like heal botting, you're gonna be able to eventually build your Tree of Life, and guess what Tree of Life does now? It gives over health. It pumps 100 HP over health if healing over, which is a super proactive, strong ultimate, which then allows you to win the team fight. I think Lifeweaver is so very underrated here, and people are still sleeping on him in high elo. I looked at the top 500 leaderboard. There's actually like quite a few Lifeweavers who have been able to hit top 250 right now, not even top 500, even higher. And you know, some friends of mine, my friend Boger, who's been playing like 300 hours of Lifeweaver when he was bad, was stuck in like low GM, and now he like shot all the way to GM1 after these giga buffs. He's super tanky, he heals a lot, and the meta kind of complemented him with, like, you know, Orisa's a resource heavy support, and who gives resources good or well, excuse me? Lifeweaver. I've scrimmed with a Illari Lifeweaver on Flashpoint maps, and it is unreal how nothing dies when you play Illari Lifeweaver. And Lifeweaver, like, people will say like, oh, it's because his damage sucks and that's why he's not played, but honestly, don't underestimate his damage. If they stand still, you can actually do a lot with the Thorn Volley. Only problem was last season there's a lot of mobility with Tracer, Winston, and Sombra and stuff, and like if they move a lot, it doesn't do a lot, right? But like if they sit still in a poke heavy meta, Lifeweaver actually has one of the best shield breaking DPS outputs. You just spam all your thorns in like a Sigma shield and it goes down pretty fast. I think people are sleeping on him. He's good right now, and very strong in every other rank. I'm happy to see the rise in his playtime. Lucio. Remember in season 1 and 2 when Lucio's self-heal was so strong when he was paired with the support passive when they added it in Overwatch 2? Yeah, they had to nerf it pretty fast, but it's actually back in season 6 for some reason. I was surprised to see this. I was like, they buffed Lucio? Because Lucio was already fine, but they just brought back stuff that they nerfed a while ago and made him even stronger right now. I don't know who asked for this. I always thought it was like a skill issue because the dev comments were like, oh, he's struggling with survivability. And I'm like, really? I feel like good Lucios should never struggle with surviving. But maybe that's just, again, a skill issue thing. He's definitely like an A+ support in top 500, and I guess if people were sucking back then, I guess he was lower rank because people or lower tiered in other rank because like people weren't using the speed, and I guess he was dying too much. But now he doesn't die as much since they buffed the survivability with the amp heal. So strong maybe? Yeah, sure. Maybe good. I think people just play like Moira Lifeweaver, or like Moira Mercy was the most common. Now Lifeweaver Illari, Lifeweaver Bap. I feel like Lucio might take a back seat a little bit because no one's gonna rush in with the speed brawl. Let's put him down in the good tier here. Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. She received that damage boost nerf this season, right? From 30% to 25%, and I feel like her identity is slowly being phased out, especially with Illari entering the support lineup, right? Illari's hit scan pressure means like if you play Illari and the enemy team plays a Mercy, that Mercy can't super jump as well as liberally as she once did before. And Illari's hit scan pressure means there's less Pharahs and Echoes, and thus less Mercies. Of course, like, she's still good, I think, right? Because you can still boost the Ashe, Sojourn, Bastion. People die, you can bring them back up. She's just not as like high tier as she once was with like the damage boost nerf, and especially like the movement cooldown if you do a movement tech. So I think she could settle in at like good. Like she's good. If good, especially if you're really good at Mercy. And for everyone else, probably maybe a tier higher. She's probably still strong. I realize this tier list is starting to like not fit anymore, so I'm gonna have to do that. Probably still pretty good. Okay, Moira's season 4 buffs where she can now fade in Coalescence. This was 2 seasons ago, right? It was really good. And that killed a major weakness in her ult where you could get like hacked and stunned out of it. It was guaranteed value, tempo swing. And now, if you want to play Moira, you can actually play her with Lucio and run the Lucio Moira support lineup with Orisa and just brawl, right? You don't have to play the slower Bap Illari poke with Orisa, just go in with it. Moira has that like TikTok flank style as well, which I played with today and we won the game, right? And this is just ranked, right? That's the pure solo queue. I don't care about my team and healing. I'm damage orbing the back and just eliminating one of their supports. If I have a TikTok Moira on my team killing their Illari, running in the back line, I'm fine with that trade, to be honest with you. So I think I think Moira's strong, to be honest with you. She's actually strong. And then the other ranks, very strong, because she's such a low skill floor. You can just get reliable value without much effort. Okay, and now we are on to the final hero, Zenyatta. Still pretty strong for both ranks, I would say. I still think Zen's pretty strong for both. He's a great poke option with Sigma and is sometimes picked with Orisa right now, right? The Discord Orb is one of the few ways to help melt through all the healing creep as well. There's less dive going around with Winston. There's still Doomfist, but remember, less dive means Zen's survivability goes up. He excels at front to back composition, so if you pick him in the right scenarios, you'll do just fine. And that is my season 6 tier list. You can see the majority of the heroes are B tier and above, right? It's very B tier and above heavy. And that's because it's true, right? Almost every hero in the game is fine and playable. Remember, do what you want, have fun. I'll see you guys in game. Bye-bye.